Hey, what's up, guys? Purple Live Sports. Back here for some more NBA talk. So I wanted to do this part 2 of the GOAT debate because yesterday I talked to you guys about, the three guys who are usually mentioned, all the aspects of their games. Some of the things I consider important when I talk about the GOAT. It doesn't really matter to me, but I think to a lot of people it does, because in sports, we usually like to compare players, their legacies, all the achievements that they have. And sometimes it is fun, and sometimes it does get, I've known a few times that it's gotten violent. I've heard stories of people just, trying to compare players before. So, but here I just, basketball, I love the game, so I understand why people do it. But all these players to me have just been so great to the game because they've just added contributions to what it means to play the game. Michael Jordan, his gracefulness, his competitive fire. You could say basically the same thing for Kobe, except Kobe, as he's aged, did lose a lot of athleticism. And it seemed like as Michael Jordan aged, and I'd say Kobe and Jordan are kind of the same, because as they aged, and Jordan didn't seem to me to really lose that much athleticism, except in his years with the Wizards. It was really in his whole tenure with the Bulls. He seemed to always have that spring where if he wanted to do something flashy, he could do it if he wanted to. But as Kobe and Jordan aged, they seemed to add this craftiness to their game, where, to me, Kobe always had the fadeaway. But when you heard about him taking thousands of shots a day, making thousands of shots a day, it was to really perfect that same fadeaway move, to get to the same spot, to get to the shot that he wanted, because he was just doing these repetitions. Because as much film as he watched, he always knew exactly where to attack opponents, just like Michael Jordan did. These two were both aggressive in film study. I bet LeBron is too. But when it comes to these guys, it's just, they watched hours of film. They worked out for hours upon day, working to perfect their craft, repetitions upon repetitions, to really do exactly what they wanted to do on the court. And it just worked for them time and time again. And that patent fadeaway that Jordan had is the same thing that Kobe had. Now, Jordan was very efficient. Kobe wasn't always so efficient. Kobe is actually the guy who owns the most field goal shot attempts and the most misses. But to me, I don't really care about all of that. I don't know why people always want to bring that up when they compare LeBron and Kobe, because when, a lot of times you're gonna miss all the shots you don't take. Kobe was not afraid to miss. Kobe's not afraid to take shots, because he ultimately just knew that, if I don't take it, if I'm just going to go pass, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with passing. I'm just giving you guys like an insight to what his mindset was. I don't care really what anybody thinks, and I think that's the key. Kobe and Jordan always had this thing in their mind where they had the ultimate confidence. I don't really care about what you guys think, because ultimately my only goal is just to win. And it's just to win, and if I have to do it on my own terms, so be it. If you guys don't like it, so be it. But that's how I'm going to do it. LeBron is probably the ultimate team player, because LeBron, to me, is a guy who really sacrifices a lot of shots, but he's really efficient because he knows exactly what shots to take. He can get to any spot that he wants on the floor due to his he's just one of those guys physically that we have actually never seen before, because it's just his size, his strength. It's ridiculous. You never seen a guy that size with all that muscle on him, but he's fast. I already said he's very strong, but he's a guy who can fly through the air, one of the best dunkers of all time. LeBron is the all-time package. My only thing with him is that it seems, I've already told you guys about to me, it's a hesitancy to adapt. I was reading this article about Aaron Rodgers, and I wasn't really reading it. I was listening to something about Aaron Rodgers from Colin Cowherd. You can catch him on Fox Sports. But he was talking about Aaron Rodgers, his hesitancy to adapt to the times now, because he was talking about Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, where they would take play calls right in the huddle. I'm talking about football here, and I'm trying to make it a kind of analogy if you can follow me here. where Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, and Drew Brees too would take play calls from their offensive coordinators or their head coaches into the huddle. They would call those plays. But because these are three of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, they know everything the defense is going to do. They know the coverages. They know what the linebackers are doing. When the linebackers are talking, they know that there's always that even when the defensive line shifts, when people shift over, they know exactly what they see. So they switch out of those plays because a lot of times what an offense coordinator is going to do is call one play or maybe call three, or maybe they send in three plays. And then there's a backup play to the first one because when you see a shift, there's a counter to every defensive coverage, right? That's what those guys did. They always looked at they always used the first play if they saw that it was going to work. But if they saw that it wasn't going to work, then they call an audible and then change the play. What Aaron Rodgers has done is he'll roll his eyes once he gets to the play. And if his first initial read, which is the first receiver that you're supposed to target, isn't open, he throws the ball out of bounds, which is basically like a middle finger to the coach. To me, LeBron is kind of like that, where I think LeBron, if there's one thing I wish he would adapt to, is just him becoming a better shooter in all aspects of the game. A guy, because he's become a better shooter, but I mean like 3-point shooting, something that he's got to really work on. Being a guy who can work off ball and get guys open with screens. Being a guy who just really is a distraction for the defense, like Steph Curry is. That's always been my gripe with LeBron. I've watched over these years, and as Steph Curry has risen up, it seems every year he's screening more for his teammates, and that gets him open more. But for LeBron, it's always this one thing. He's got the ball, and he's either driving to the hole and throwing it out to somebody in the corner, or he's backing somebody down and throwing to somebody off of a cut, which is cool and all. I understand how it works. But the game has shifted, and the game continues to shift to a perimeter-oriented offense. If LeBron became, I'll say, more efficient three-point shooter, because I don't need you shooting like, 7 shots a game or like 10 shots a game like Steph Curry, because that's not what your game really is. But what I'm saying is when you don't have the ball, you got to be more efficient and more productive with those possessions. If there's another person I want to say who should be doing that, it's a James Harden. But we're not talking about James Harden. I'm talking about LeBron James. And I can't say I wish Kobe and Jordan would have done that, and here's why. Because they played in a different era. And three-point shots that wasn't what the game was back then. What it was back then was it's isolation, it's mid-range shooting, and the three-point shot was more like a third or fourth option in an offense, where you just had guys space out in the corner if that was part of a play or if something broke down. The three-point shot today is basically a main staple. It's like either a first or second option, because now you have all these guys in the NBA who can just knock down an open shot, or guys who can pull up off the dribble, due to a man named Stephen Curry. So if LeBron, my only thing is those two, Jordan and Kobe, adapted. And those two remained competitive throughout their career. LeBron, to me, has adapted to such a small degree that I don't really see a change in what he's done. And it seems that he's not willing to that he doesn't like to play with young players or teach the game to young players. Now, do I have really great evidence of that? I really don't, because playing in LA last year, he was around a lot of young players, and they did have the 4th seed before he got injured, which to me is the most annoying comment, because I don't care what you did before you got injured. You got to continue to play throughout the rest of the year. So people who want to really throw that out there are just kind of being ignorant to the facts. You got to keep playing. Kobe said this yesterday. Playoff mode started as soon as the first game started for Kobe Bryant. His main goal, his first goal was to get to the playoffs. The moment that the playoffs started is to win a championship. Jordan, I think he probably was like, I'm getting to the playoffs regardless. I know who I am. I'm Michael Jordan. I got my boy Scottie Pippen next to me. We're going to get to the playoffs. But his goal was to win a championship. Right? So that's always going to be my problem with LeBron James, is that why would you say things like playoff mode is activated? If I was in that situation, it's always playoff mode. it's always I have a future, I have an end goal. So, and I know what I'm visualizing. I know what I want to happen in the future. If you can visualize that, and then once that season starts, if you're visualizing before the season, I want to win a championship, then all through the season, you're gradually growing to get to that level. LeBron James saying in the middle of a playoff run that, like, playoff mode is activated, that's going to be my only issue with them. But that's going to do it for part 2 of the GOAT debate with you guys. I want to thank you guys so much for listening. Again, I would probably say Kobe or MJ is the GOAT. So that's going to do it for part 2. Thank you guys for watching, and I will talk to you guys again soon.